Hello friends, I hope you're doing well and thanks for tuning into Dirty Teeth. I'm going to cut straight to the chase. I attempted the Colorado Trail Race this year. It seems like forever ago, but in actuality, it was just a few weeks ago that I made the trek to Colorado with a singular goal. I'm in the rental car, I've got the bike in the back. I just left my family, just said my goodbyes. Now my brain starts looking to getting back to them. And there's only one way to do that, and that's to ride my bike from Durango to Denver. But first I gotta get on the plane in Boise. Anyway, yeah, I've been feeling a lot of apprehension lately. Been really emotional, kind of interesting. But I'm excited. I'm ready to do this thing. It's been on my bucket list a long time, and it's time to go. My primary goal was to do whatever it takes to ride and push my bike the 530-ish miles and finish the route. I would travel in my typical style, which I call roaring. If you're new to this channel, it's a combo platter of racing and touring. The racing portion entails riding hard, riding long hours and pushing myself, but not to the point of misery, and never at the expense of the overall experience. Soaking it all in and relishing every moment with a smile is equally as important, even if it means slowing down to smell the roses. With that said, quitting or scratching or deviating from my primary goal was not an option. Well, spoiler alert, I scratched, I quit, whatever you want to call it, I did not finish the CTR. I did not achieve my primary goal, but that doesn't mean I failed. I cherished every mile and every experience I had on the route, even the not so pleasant ones. At first, I felt pretty deflated and pretty much depressed. I'm still kind of embarrassed as I sit here making a video on the experience. Who am I to offer insight or tips or knowledge on the CTR if I didn't even finish what I started? But I know that when we allow ourselves, we can learn and grow immensely through adversity, hardship, and setbacks. Oftentimes much more than when everything goes to plan and falls perfectly into place. So here I am, humbled and recovering from my time on the Colorado Trail. For full disclosure, this video mixes iPhone footage captured in the moment during the race with GoPro and drone footage from previous scouting missions. This includes some sections of trail I never made it to during the 2023 CTR, as well as a couple bits of the Monarch Crest Trail just off the CT route. So if you have intimate knowledge of the trail, don't call me out. I just want to share as much of the Colorado Trail's character and majesty with you as I can. Hopefully some of this resonates and gets you fired up to ride your bike, which is ultimately why I share these videos. Just know this, the CT is definitely worth every ounce of blood and sweat, and it has definitely not seen the last of me. So without further ado, good morning and welcome to a drizzly and overcast downtown Durango. I'm here at the Holiday Inn Express. I used my IHG points. My bike box showed up. Here's some gear that I'm gonna be wearing on my body. Got my food and stuff laid out over here. But the task at hand is to get this puppy built. There she is. Luckily she went together well, no drama. Rotors straight, bolts all tight, everything feeling good. Take it for a test ride in a minute. My race started off pretty weird. I arrived late to the 4 a.m. group start due to my own foolishness. This involved a package in the post office and it being Sunday, and yeah, that's another story. When I rolled up to the College Drive Cafe, the neutral rollout had already departed, and there were just a few lagging spectators jumping in their cars. I never really caught up to the pack, but I could see the blinky lights of a few straggling riders as I cruised through town. I was just trying to get myself relaxed and mentally prepared for the task at hand. Somewhere around 5 a.m., I finally made it to the southern terminus of the CT. All right, here I am at the Junction Creek trailhead of the Colorado Trail. I'm a little nervous, a little anxious, but just happy to be here, happy to get this going. So let's see if my legs and lungs have it in me. Let's get some. I'll turn the camera back on when there's actually something to see. Sun's coming up. Beautiful morning. I'm probably around 10 miles in. I don't know. Been riding a couple hours now. Averaging around 5 miles an hour. Climbing a bunch, as you can tell, up in the mountains. I think I got a bug or something in the throat. Sorry about that. Anyway, back to it. Taking it nice and easy. Really enjoying this loamy, clay-like surface here. It's pretty moist, pretty damp. A lot of creek crossings. Here's another little one. And at some point here, I'm gonna start climbing again, but man, got to enjoy every second of down while you can. Ah, it smells so good, it's so fresh. The forest is starting to wake up. The birds are chirping. I saw an elk and a grouse and a bunch of birds hanging out in the trail before sunrise. All right, nice little bridge here. Sweet. And here comes the climbing. Oh boy. Gotta get these legs warmed back up. Once you make it to the top of Kennebec Pass, it's a gorgeous spot to have a snack and take in the 360-degree views. After all, you've just climbed over 6,000 feet in 20 miles and you earned it. But after this, there are a couple of fantastic and flowy downhill trending miles that get you to Taylor Lake. Oh, this is the fastest section I've had yet. Are you kidding me? Finally! Woo-hoo! This is the last reliable water source until Straight Creek near Blackhawk Pass, which for most mortals is a few hours away. So even if you're completely drained, I think it's worth pushing on to the outlet by Taylor Lake. I'm not the only one with this strategy because there was a whole gang of us regrouping there. You can eat lunch, which for me was a couple of slices of pizza from the night before, camel up, and refill your water. By this time, you've gotten bikepacking amnesia and forgotten all about the morning suffering, and you're mentally prepared to tackle Indian Trail Ridge. Indian Ridge! Wow, it was some tough hike-a-bike to gain the ridge, but now that I'm up here, check this out. Big mountain views, baby. It's tough. Howdy.
Oh my God, it's amazing, huh?
Yeah, I've never been up here before. Pretty stoked.
My first time as well.
You too?
Yeah.
Oh man. Where'd you come from or where are you going?
Oh, we were Mullis Pass to Durango.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, you got some good, fun stuff ahead of you.
That's it, yeah. That's what it looks like.
Are you by yourself or someone else?
My partner right behind me here.
What's your name?
I'm Pablo.
Pablo, Alan.
Alan, pleasure to meet you, Alan.
Yeah, good meeting you, brother.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Birdie.
Birdie. Birdie and Pablo. Enjoy the rest of your adventure.
You too.
Oh, how can you not?
Right?
Woo! Ah, a little patch of snow. I don't know if you can see it off to the right here. After lots of strenuous ups and downs across various landscapes and terrain and a nice long chunk of hike-a-bike, you finally crest Blackhawk Pass. By this point in the route, you've covered roughly 45 miles, climbed almost 10,000 feet, and you're just getting started. But that's the last thing on your mind. Again, you're rewarded with fantastic views in all directions, and a fast and fun descent welcomes you off the backside. Wildflowers are going off, and for a few moments, your heart rate drops and you actually get a little bit of recovery. Even though these moments are few and far between in relation to the suffering, they're enough to keep you going and yearning to know what's on the other side of that climb, and the next one, and the next one. Wash, rinse, repeat. Celebration Lake. I'm not quite sure what I'm celebrating. I'm thrashed. My body's toasted, but it sure is beautiful. Still smiling. I don't know if you can see that waterfall. It's pretty sweet. Water just cascading. Whoop! Down the hill over there. Pretty magical. Oh, whoa. Wasn't expecting to see a bridge out here. Crossing the river. Wow. That is pretty. The final extended climb slash hike-a-bike before dropping into Silverton is called Rolling Mountain Pass. After cresting it, you're rewarded with more amnesia. Memories of suffering fade away as ribbons of manicured single track wiggle you closer and closer to civilization. By this point in the race, I knew I wasn't physically well, even though I was thriving mentally. I lost my appetite before Blackhawk Pass and could barely get myself to take more than a few sips of water. In fact, I only drank a half liter of water after leaving Taylor Lake 10 hours earlier. Anyone who knows this route knows that's a recipe for failure. Anytime I forced myself to sip some water, I'd dry heave, and it was the same if I tried to chew some nuts or eat a square of chocolate. I'd have to tuck the chocolate in my cheek and let it slowly melt like I was eating some time-release fish food. I was severely depleted, so I descended a ways down and set up my bivvy at a nice little camp spot just a few miles before Little Mullis Lake. My heart rate slowly dropped, and I looked forward to curling up in my sleeping bag. It had been a hard-fought 18-hour day in the saddle. I forced myself to eat half a fig bar, stomached a few sips of water, and then shimmied into bed. Before I knew it, I was struggling to get the zipper open just in time to roll out of my bivvy and puke all over my shoes. I didn't have much to give, but continued dry heaving for a while. Okay, don't panic. I was carrying Zofran, and I knew it's the altitude causing it. I relaxed as best I could and made a plan. Let's sleep until 5 a.m., get up, and drop into Silverton. Eat some real food, try to replenish my body, and then reassess with the luxury of ample sleep and a full belly. FYI, I was carrying 12,000 calories at the start. I thought that would be enough for about 2.5 days to get me to Cathedral Ranch Cabins. I knew there was a good chance I'd pass through Silverton late at night or early in the morning while services were closed. Little did I know I'd only eat about 2,000 calories of that 12,000, and that just the smell of my snack food would make me want to gag. Like Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. Anywho, I woke up feeling recharged and was greeted with fast and flowy miles descending damp and tacky hero dirt. Before long, darkness gave way to a jaw-dropping sunrise and majestic views. My endorphins were popping, the stoke meter was high, and I got caught in La La Land. I was pinning it when I hit a slippery water bar, and whoosh, my front tire just washed out. I hit the ground hard and immediately wailed in pain as my handlebars impaled my ribs. Initially, I was mad because it was such a dumb mistake. I stayed down for a bit, assessing myself. I really hoped it was just a bruise, but my instincts and experience told me otherwise. As I started to push myself up, my right hand felt a little weird. I took off my glove and noticed a puncture wound and felt bruising on my right palm. Annoying, but I could still grip my handlebars. As for my ribs, I rationalized I'd just use them as kind of a pacemaker. If I'm breathing so hard that they hurt, that's just a sign to dial it back a little bit. In hindsight, I don't know what I was thinking, but I just continued on down the trail to Silverton. After a bit, I noticed my handlebar light snapped off in the crash. I knew I could squeak by with just my helmet light, but on such a techie and demanding route, it wouldn't be ideal. So I left my bike and hiked a half hour back up to the crash zone. Lucky for me, the light was still on, otherwise I'm not sure I would have spotted it buried deep in the bushes. Finally, around 7:30 a.m., I hobbled up to the Coffee Bear to get a breakfast burrito and get my mind right. When the food arrived, I could only muster a couple bites and was queasy the whole time. No bueno. I slowly drank an Nantucket nectar, but again, queasy the whole time. The adrenaline rush from the crash was now gone, and the rib pain started kicking in stronger. I saw someone I knew out front and chatted with her for a minute. She had a car and offered me a ride back to Durango if I felt I couldn't continue. Pulling the plug then and there was a pretty easy out and a viable option. I dismissed the urge and opted to get a hotel room instead. I bought groceries, popped some Advil, took a shower, and took a nap. Afterwards, I was able to stomach some watermelon and drink some lemonade. It was a start. I walked to the Handlebars Saloon for lunch and ordered a bacon cheeseburger as the rain started pouring outside. Hey, I managed a few bites without feeling nauseous. I also felt the urge to pee. This was the first time since leaving Durango more than 24 hours ago. I was feeling optimistic, so I made a questionable plan to depart Silverton at midnight. On paper, this would get me up the 3,000-foot climb to Stony Pass in the dark. Then it would set me up for a sunrise sesh in the Coney Cataract area of segment 23. After that, I'd get safely past the route's high point and the rest of the dangerously exposed sections before the lightning storms and monsoons came in the early afternoon. 12 a.m. came, so I gorilla taped my light on the busted mount and went for it. The stars were out, which meant nice weather for the time being, and life was good. The sun rose for me as I was nearing Carson Saddle. This means I got Cataract Coney in the early morning light, and it was mind-blowing. The couple photos and video I grabbed just don't do it justice. Hey, it's about 6 in the morning. Started riding at midnight. from Silverton. I'm now just up in this majesty, and the sun is rising. That's snow right there. And then this is all starting to rise behind me. I'm up at like, I don't know, 12,500, almost 13,000 feet right now. Oh. Unfortunately, I started feeling sick and queasy and again had a hard time eating and drinking. By the time I reached the high point, I had a lingering headache, was constantly nauseous, and zero appetite. But my spirits were high. Okay, I made it to another milestone on the route. This is something I've been looking forward to. Oh man, this feels as good, if not better, than hitting Rainy Pass on the Iditarod. This is the high point. It's not necessarily the most beautiful section. There's way more beauty in other spots, but you can see we're up high. I'd force myself to sit down and take a few bites of the leftover breakfast burrito every couple hours. For drinking, I'd pinch my nose and take a couple sips of water here and there. I still couldn't totally kick the dry heaving, which really aggravated the rib. It probably sounds a bit weird, but I was actually morbidly getting a kick out of this and enjoying some laughs at how much I was suffering. But then the laughing would make my rib yell at me, which would make me laugh even more. It was a vicious cycle. But the views and the solitude and the gratitude kept me marching forward. Eventually, I finished walking through endless baby heads on Jerosa Mesa and arrived at Spring Creek Trailhead. I was barely operating on empty. So, in full bonk mode, I started the hot pavement climb up to Slumgullion Pass. Finally, at the summit, I met a couple from Texas. I'm pretty sure they could tell I wasn't right, and the gentleman offered me some cold water. I thanked him for the offer, politely declined, and let him know I had plenty. He asked again, "Are you sure? This is ice-cold Niagara Falls water." As I saw him digging in his Yeti cooler and the ice was sloshing around, my brain flipped a switch and I actually had a positive reception to the thought of water. So I gave it a shot. After a few test sips without issue, I was actually able to chug it and finish the whole bottle. I hadn't been able to drink this much at one time since early on day one. It was trail magic at its best and enough to propel me down the gorgeous 20-mile gravel descent along Mill Creek. These also happened to be the fastest, easiest miles of the whole route up to this point, so I was still in the game. Before I knew it, Annette and Brad were greeting me at the general store of Cathedral Ranch Cabins. I was in heaven. It was only 2:30 p.m. and normally I would have resupplied, enjoyed some conversation, and continued on. I was in such caloric deficit that I decided to take a cabin for the night and again try to recover from the day's depletion. I baked a frozen pizza and cooked up some ramen and Auntie Anne's pasta and had a couple frozen strawberry fruit bars. My appetite was coming back and I had no urges to throw up, even though the snacks I was carrying still disgusted me. I was now down around 8,800 feet in elevation, pretty much the lowest I'd been since climbing out of Durango. More importantly, it was much lower than the 12,000 plus I'd been at for most of the day. This pretty much confirmed I was fighting altitude sickness, and it gave me confidence even though I knew it wasn't ideal. I knew I could keep pushing through and eventually overcome it in the upcoming days, thank goodness. However, my rib pain was starting to nag at me more and more. So I kept popping Advil and hoping for the best. Thoughts of bailing to Gunnison slowly started creeping in my head. But again, I woke up feeling great and shoved the pain out of my mind. I got so skinny that my shorts that have this normally tight-fitting elastic waistband started slipping down past my hips. I ate 2 more packs of top ramen, chugged the chocolate milk, and packed up. Before leaving my Wi-Fi connection, I told my wife that I intended to reach Marshall Pass that night. So if she saw my dot there, she'd know I was all good, but if I dipped off to Poncha Springs or something, I was Dunsky. P.S. Brad and Annette are the epitome of hospitality, and their setup is like a warm hug for any bikepackers passing through. Just saying. I left Cathedral Ranch Cabins a couple hours ago. So far, so good. I already drank more than I drank all day yesterday, and I've had a couple handfuls of M&Ms, and there seems to be an appetite there, so I'm just hoping that it keeps up. Either way, it's just a beautiful morning gravel ride on this detour before hitting the CT again and heading up to Sergeant's Mesa. I guess this is morning 4 for me. All right, see you soon. Again, the first few hours flew by and I was making great time. I had power in my legs on the climbs and I passed by a few riders who left Cathedral Cabins a couple hours before me. I was finally riding what I considered to be my normal pace. Life was good. There was even a Trail Magic cooler by the Highway 114 crossing, and I got a boost from a Capri Sun. The dreaded Sergeant's Mesa section was extremely tough, but I was able to keep my energy up for the most part. It's amazing how suffering while being able to take in some food and drink compared to suffering with zero appetite is actually a relief. And that's how it felt the whole way up to Sergeant's Mesa. The flat part of the mesa itself was extremely enjoyable, and the magic hour light as I was cresting over the top was breathtaking. I flew down the screaming descent to Tank 7 Creek at last light, and I was feeling like $1,000,000. I figured I was still about 3 hours from Marshall Pass, and I was motivated to get there so Angela could see my dot and know I was all good. So I kept on going into night mode with no real clue what lied ahead. Little did I know there'd be some insanely steep sections of pushing and lifting my bike up and over huge boulders. This was relentless on my ribs. Then my back muscles started to spasm, probably in an effort to pick up the slack. It felt like forever, but I eventually arrived at my camp spot around 11:30 and I was spent.
Hello. So I'm just lying here in my bivy sack. I'm by, what's the pass called? Marshall Pass. So I was able to put down a brownie and drink some water, but my heart rate is still just having trouble dropping. I'm having trouble dropping my heart rate. I'm getting rest by being in the bag, but I'm having trouble sleeping because I can just feel my heart. Dum, 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 dum. Yeah, I'm just going to lie here until 4 in the morning. Then I'm going to get up and try to eat more food, drink more water, and then head up to Fooses for the sunrise. Kind of want to go now. It's like 2 in the morning, but there's no point. I really want to see that sunrise up at the top. So yeah, but on the brighter side of things, at least I've been able to eat food, not puke up everything, and keep water down. So that's a good thing. I'm praying that I've turned a corner. Girlies and Angela, if you're watching this or listening, I just love you so much, and I miss you, and I think about you every night and every day. I love you.
I had sharp rib pains anytime I wiggled or turned in my bivvy, but I stared at the stars above and couldn't help but feel so blessed and thankful. I strategically camped near a nice water source and filled up before departing in the morning.
So this is a little piped spring right near my camp spot, Marshall Pass. Shh, don't tell peeps. Ah, nice cool spring water, baby.
I slowly made my way up to the Monarch Crest in the dark. If you're not familiar with this area, it's a bucket list ride on its own, and I suggest you watch my video on it. My timing was spot on, and I hit the top of Fooses just after sunrise. It was kind of an emotional time for me. I'm sure that any of you that have done these types of events can relate to it and know what I'm talking about. It's part of what I love about these journeys, even if it's embarrassing to share.
You know, my daughter asks me, why do you do this, Dad? It's one of the reasons here, to glorify my God, my Creator, and just be up here in His majesty. Yeah, this is sunrise on the Continental Divide. Oh, Fooses Creek Trail. Oh, look at that. The sun's just starting to kiss the mountain. Fooses Trail's that way, that's where I'm going. And that's where I came from, down there. Yeah, just so blessed to hit this at sunrise and to have a little bit of energy in my belly. Yeah, thankful, blessed.
The descent down Fooses is well known, and it's considered a highlight of the route, at least when riding towards Denver. It starts off steep and sketchy, but as you get lower into the trees, the fun factor keeps kicking up as you drop around 3,000 feet while ebbing and flowing with the creek. Unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy it this time around. All the roots and rocks rattled my rib pretty bad. Advil was no longer masking the pain. Every time I got out of the saddle for a surge of power to keep momentum going through rock gardens and grade reversals, I'd get shanked with a dagger in the chest. No fun. I stopped at Highway 50 and seriously considered heading off route into Salida. But in the end, I stubbornly convinced myself that it'll get easier on segment 14. Let's just keep on keeping on until Mount Princeton Hot Springs and reassess there. So I did. I'd previously had the luxury of spending time at Mount Princeton Hot Springs with my family. There's natural tubs and a bunch of different pools, as well as a super fun water slide for the kiddos. As I rolled up this time, a bunch of memories came flooding back, and I knew there would be no time for soaking. I made a quick stop in the general store and took a short break under a tree. My lunch consisted of a couple personal pizzas, frozen bomb pops, some naked juice, a vitamin water, and a root beer. Then I was off towards Buena Vista, where I was planning on doing a legit resupply. My body was enjoying the lower altitudes during this stretch, and I was mentally revitalized. Not quite out of the woods as far as altitude sickness, but I had definitely turned a corner and was struggling less and less with caloric intake. Although the CT never relents, it generally does get easier and faster, and the average elevation gradually lessens the closer you get to Denver. Plus, by this point, your body is adapted to the grind, so 3,000 foot climbs are like, whatever. I was familiar with the two major climbs that lied ahead and was actually looking forward to them. I still had to get up and over Kokomo and Searle Pass into Copper Mountain ski area, and then up and over the infamous 10-mile section towards Breckenridge. These are both over 12,000 feet high with copious amounts of energy-sapping hike-a-bike. But they're both absolutely breathtaking with non-stop views in every direction. P.S. I also have a standalone video just on the 10-mile section, which, since you've lasted this long, you'll probably enjoy too. But the sections of the route that have you meandering up and down around 12 to 13,000 feet for hours on end were all in the rearview mirror. So that was super motivating and I was pumped. However, in the midst of all that positivity and anticipation, everything went sideways. The Cottonwood section after Mount Princeton had some fantastic single track that felt as if it was actually built with mountain bikers in mind. Who would have thunk? I don't know exactly how or why, but somewhere in all the fun, I think on a rocky step up, I felt a pop in my rib cage, and all of a sudden I was just in agony, like a wounded animal yelling at the canyons. I think I separated the already fractured and damaged rib. From then on, everything felt like torture. Bending over to tie my shoe or hawking a loogie tested my pain threshold. Normal breathing, easy pedaling, lifting my bike over rocks. Basically, every aspect of traveling on the Colorado Trail became unbearable. I finally relented to what God had been trying to tell me for a while. My adventure was over. I really started to fear doing more damage, so as much as I dreaded it, I pulled the plug. Up until then, I struggled and wrestled with the thought of scratching. Not anymore. I was super bummed, but I gave it my all, and I was at peace with the decision. A few minutes later, my Garmin, which had pretty fresh batteries in it, suddenly died at 283 miles. I took that as another sign, and didn't even bother putting fresh batteries in. I was done. There were just a couple more miles of trail before hitting pavement and then coasting down 10 miles into BV. As I rolled into town, I was debating whether to stop in a hotel, head over to urgent care, or get some food. And then I saw this dude on a street corner filming me.
Alan! Man, how you doing, buddy?
Been better.
As you can tell, my spirits were pretty low, but it turned out to be Dave. I met him briefly at the Canadian border by Roosevelt a couple years ago. I had given JP a ride up to the start of the Great Divide Classic / truncated Tour Divide race, and I was doing a bit of filming. In the spirit of making trail magic, I handed out a bunch of Subway gift cards to people at the Whitefish Bike Retreat and again at the starting line of the race. Well, Dave was one of those folks. Cut back to BV. When I told Dave about my ribs and that my ride was over, he wouldn't let me get a hotel. He loaded my bike in his car and took me to Simple Eatery for dinner. Then he called his wife Lauralee, and she had a room ready for me at their home. Long story short, they nursed me for 2 days and nights, and we had some wonderful fellowship. They fed me, washed my bike clothes, let me borrow some temporary clothes, took me to the bike shop so I could have my bike shipped home. Dave even drove me 3 hours to Denver so I could catch a flight home. I am absolutely blown away by the generosity and selflessness of Dave and Lauralee, and my time spent with them was quite possibly the best memories of my whole CTR journey. So that's it. I'm sorry it was so long-winded, and I can't believe you stayed here till the end. I've compiled a list of websites, podcasts, blogs, videos, etc. that might come in handy just in case the Colorado Trail starts calling your name. And because I get so many questions about training and prep, I also wrote a short blog about my training plan, or lack thereof, leading up to this event. I'll put a link to that as well as everything else I discussed in the description below. If you're curious about my bike and my gear setup, that all performed flawlessly. I'll probably do another video highlighting that stuff in the upcoming weeks. Until next time, ride bikes, give back, pay it forward. Thanks so much for squeezing Dirty Teeth into your busy schedule. Please help us reach more people and ensure you receive new videos by giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the notification bell. Until next time, ride bikes, give back, pay it forward.